Uh-huh.
All right, guys. Most underrated, most overrated coaches in the Big Ten. We are going to go one each, and then we'll come back and we'll go one each, one more. This don't necessarily have to be underrated. These don't necessarily have to be overrated. It's just back and forth, whatever you guys think. So, Zach, I'll let you go first. Give me a underrated or overrated coach in the Big Ten.
Oh man. I mean, I'll go, I think, with the obvious one. As much success as he's had, I still feel like he's underrated. It's Brett Bielema.
I was going to say that. You took it from me.
That's why I went. I'm grateful I got to go first.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you mean? Like, so where do you think people have Brett Bielema, and where would you generally kind of have him in the Big Ten? Like, I would have Brett Bielema top 5 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk earlier this season. I need to go back to my notes about Big Ten coaches because I have it here. But I mean, a lot of people were thinking he was on the hot seat to get fired earlier this year.
I remember that. Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to find my coach's note here, and I forget where I had him.
I don't mean to press you. I'm just asking, like, generally,
no,
like, where do you think people have him at, and like generally, like, where would you kind of place him?
I felt like coming into the year, people had him in bottom half of the Big Ten, and I would have him top 3rd.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, Larry, underrated, overrated coach.
At this juncture, I'm not saying that, overall everything, just this season, looking at how Nebraska got walloped and then how there's no plan to support that young man this season. Matt Rhule, and I'm not saying it in terms of he's forever. In 2 years, you come ask me, and I'm like, you said he was overrated. Not that I don't believe in him overall, but I think, you got to have a better plan to bring along your young quarterback. Obviously, a great recruiter, a lot of charisma, those things around the program. Obviously, program's still on the ascension, but you can't get completely mollywopped like that. And you can't leave your young quarterback out to dry like that because, quite frankly, if you do that, you're going to stunt his development. Or in this new age of college football, maybe he's looking. I'm not saying that that's always going to happen. They're 5 and they're doing good, okay? But I just think a ton of fanfare. You got to have a better plan than what we saw last week, and so I'll say he's a little bit overrated. And I also was going to say underrated Bielema, so I had to do it on the spot. So don't sue me.
That's fair. I think it's a fair thought.
All right, so my underrated is actually Luke Fickell, and I'm not just sucking up to Rajiv. This was actually what I plan to say. Listen, I believed in Luke Fickell to start the year, and I went off of that because of the performance early on in the season, and the Alabama game was kind of the capping that I was like, look, they weren't even competitive with them and stuff like that, and this is not the team that we thought they were. So, but at the end of the day, like, seeing this defense over the past few weeks, this is the Wisconsin team I thought we were going to see. Like, Zach, you and I picked them to go 9-3 in the conference. We were very much so. I think we picked them to beat Oregon. Yep. I don't know if I'd make that same pick today still, but like, I still don't think it's crazy. And I'm seriously considering picking them over Penn State this next week as well. So, I mean, I haven't made my picks, obviously, yet. We'll get to those on Tuesday. But, like, this is a Wisconsin team that has displayed, albeit not the best Big Ten competition the past few weeks, but this is a Wisconsin team that is showing they are a well-coached team and they can put it all together if things are, I don't want to say going well for them, but if the game plan is going well and Phil Longo is in his bag. That's another piece of this. Phil Longo, when he's in his bag, it's really, really hard to stop this offense.
Yeah.
I know they only put up 23 on Northwestern, but this is an underrated Northwestern defense where if you score 20 plus on them, you're a pretty good offense in my mind at the very least. So Luke Fickell, underrated.
Yeah. And I'll just say this. I was also down on him. And I think it says something to be able to round into form after a really disappointing first 4 games. So, and with, all the injuries. So I think there's a lot of kudos there for Luke Fickell.
I agree. All right. Give me one more coach, underrated or overrated, Zach.
So this is going to be controversial.
I love it.
Ryan Day's underrated.
Okay.
Here's
Keep
why.
going.
Here's why. I think a lot of people, and I'll go with what Michigan fans have said. Ryan Day was born on third base. I think we're seeing from a lot of the top tier programs how hard it is to stay elite. And like you're seeing it at Bama, you're seeing it at Michigan, and you're like I think you're seeing it. You saw it at Texas as they've fallen off, USC as they've fallen off. Ohio State, Ryan Day is taking on a harder conference. And I realized there is a comparison that I think is actually very fair for Ryan Day. That again, I don't think people will appreciate, but I found it really helpful as I thought about it. Ryan Day is to college football as LeBron James is to basketball. Really good at recruiting, really good at X's and O's, really good at everything. He just can't finish. But you know what? 99% of college would want that. They'd want the great recruiting. They'd want all the wins. They'd want all the bowl games. They'd want all that. And they would take that in a heartbeat. And I feel like lost in the top five, in the top five losses, we've kind of forgotten like just how dominant Ryan Day has been in every other aspect. So
he is an unranked team merchant. What is he 43-0 against unranked teams?
He's also a Penn State merchant. So
well, that too.
Yeah.
That and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He forces Notre Dame to only play 10 players because they're so afraid to put their players.
He's won 2 conference championships. Like I think people forget that. And he's the other thing I would just point out too, he has had to deal with the most dominant stretch of Michigan since John Cooper, which I know that's often a comparison, but like Cooper didn't have to deal with 3 straight top 5 Michigan teams.
Interesting. Yeah, Larry, you give your thoughts. I'm an Ohio State fan, so I'm biased. You give your thoughts, and then we'll get to your coach.
He makes valid points, but you are born on third base when you're him. I mean, Ohio State has different standards. We're seeing that in the comments. That's true. There was a lot of fanfare and hype earlier on too that I even thought like, whoa, pump the brakes. Let's see how he does over the course of a couple of years. So is he underrated? It's like he became underrated as people started to say, oh, maybe he's a little too much hype. I don't know. I mean, you make valid points I can't argue with, and that's my main thing is not arguing with valid points. If I don't have any logical retort, I don't have any logical retort. So I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
If I just add one more thing, people are like, LeBron has championships. LeBron didn't have a championship till he brought a closer onto his team.
That's true.
Couldn't win a title without Ray Allen. Couldn't win a title without Kyrie.
It's true.
He wouldn't have a title without Ray Allen hitting that corner 3-pointer. So.
Exactly. That's why, like, I think he's not Michael Jordan. But I think he's LeBron. And I think if he gets the right assistant.
This is a crazy statement.
OSU
would have the same record if Ryan Walters was there.
This is why he's underrated. Because
fair enough.
Garbage. No offense, John. I'm sorry, but
I love that John said that. That is hilarious.
And I don't think John actually means that, but
I think he does. He's commented it quite a bit. I love that he commented that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Larry, overrated, underrated. Who's yours?
I'm going to just give you 3 quick thoughts in general. The first one is not that controversial. The second 2 made get me kicked out of Rutgers Nation for the rest of my life. But number 1, Kurt Cignetti. I'd love to say he's underrated, but the guy comes in like a barnstorm, gets hired, and just lights the world on fire. There's no time to have him as underrated. So I can't say he's underrated. The dude's just coming in, and right now he's looking pretty good. Overrated, Greg Schiano is at great threat of being overrated if this continues the way it is. He has a lot of fanfare. People on the strength of his name and his reputation and his coaching style give Rutgers a lot of props. Being somebody who covers Rutgers and being around Big Ten and other college football analysts, all preseason, including you guys, a lot of you guys went out on a limb to say, hey, Rutgers is looking good for a lot of reasons. And part of that was him. And to have this kind of showing and to talk about being a developmental program and to really be stunted in your growth because of these injuries, he's not there yet, but he's at risk of, the hype and the name and the old school style from years ago, maybe overrating what he's capable of right now. Not ready to call my shot, as Greg said, quite yet, but it's worth mentioning. And then another guy who I know Rutgers Nation is going to kill me for, and probably everybody in the Big Ten, and I don't even know why I'm saying it because I'm really not a fan. But I'm going to say James Franklin only because at the end of the day, he hasn't gotten over the hump the way you want him to, but he's an excellent recruiter. And yes, there's a lot to be desired on the football field, a lot to be desired X's and O's. But every year now, they have not only they're recruiting at a high level, but they're always at the top of the conference. They're consistently a good team. They're consistently showing up year in and year out. It's not easy to do in the Big Ten. You just said it, Zach. It's not easy to do. I know he hasn't have all the accolades of some of the other guys, but he gets a lot of hate from other teams, or especially Rutgers fans and all that, and I understand why. But at the end of the day, the guy is a perennial, really good team, perennial top-ranked team, perennial, really good recruiter. He might be a little underrated sometimes, just saying it. Hopefully I still have a podcast tomorrow, guys, but that's my thoughts.
No, I think that's valid. I think that James Franklin does get a little bit too much crap at times. Definitely showing this season that he has a good team put together. And I ranked Indiana over Penn State in my power rankings, but that was less to do about Penn State not looking good and more. I'm just super impressed with Kirk Ferentz in Indiana. So, all right. So I'll get to my overrated. I'm really surprised nobody said Lincoln Riley for overrated. I was saving on that one, but the one I really want to say for overrated, and this might lose me some followers on Twitter. This might lose me some subscribers. That's fine. Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz is the most overrated coach in the Big Ten by far. Kirk Ferentz benefited from the Big Ten West for years. Kirk Ferentz has 200 wins in the Big Ten because of longevity, not because I don't want to say because he didn't earn them. Obviously, he earned every single win. But you look at when the Big Ten West was established, Kirk Ferentz, like I did the math on it. I obviously don't have time to do the math right now. I'll try to put it out there later on. But Kirk Ferentz's winning percentage in the Big Ten was like 20 percentage points higher when the Big Ten West existed than when it didn't exist. And now you're starting to see it again. You're seeing Kirk Ferentz not willing to put a different quarterback in there when the other team has kicked more field goals than your quarterback has completed passes at halftime. Like, what in the world are we doing? What, you have Brendan Sullivan sitting right there. It's Tim Lister's guy. This is obviously the guy that he wants on his team, and you will not put him in there. You just are content with continuing to run the ball with Caleb Johnson, especially when you've seen your defense struggle to tackle the entire game. You just think the tackling is going to automatically get better in the second half? That's not how the game works. A coach has to be able to feel how the game is going and make changes on the fly. Instead, he just went right back out there in the second half and said, okay, we'll run a little bit more read option with Cade McNamara, which worked once, and then it just stopped working after that. Congratulations, you got a 75-yard touchdown run off that. But at the end of the day, Kirk Ferentz has been a Big Ten West merchant. He has benefited off of that ever since Brett Bielema left, and he's like, ever since then, he's not been able to put together the campaign that he had once in the Big Ten West. Mm-hmm. So that really just, I think, made his career look that much better. It was making people think that Iowa could be 10-2 this season. They're not. They're going to be 7-5. They're going to be 8-4. 8-4 is their ceiling at this point. And for me, I can't say Kirk Ferentz is one of the best coaches in the Big Ten when his ceiling is 8-4. Yeah, that's just me.
Well said.
There's a T-shirt idea here.
We have like 15 T-shirts ideas. We
got former Big Ten West merchant.
There we go.
I like it.
When you literally have fans putting on their body, punting is winning. Like, I know it's a joke, but there are actually Iowa fans that believe that.
Oh, they're serious.
Like, it's not going to happen in the new Big Ten. Yes, it worked in the Big Ten West for a little bit. Congrats. It's not going to work anymore.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the 12 Saturdays guys, who we love and respect, but I think they got to feel that way. It ain't going to work anymore.
And don't get me wrong. Like, I respect Kirk Ferentz's longevity, how long he's been able to stay in the game. He really hasn't had all that many scandals. I mean, he had the gambling stuff here recently, and he had the, what was the thing that happened this offseason that got him suspended for a game? Like, and like, I respect that he like took accountability for that, but I don't love the way he treated, and I realize this is kind of inside Ohio State stuff, so just give me a second, but I don't like the way he treated Doug Lake-Maurice. I don't like the way that he hired his son for years. Like, at the end of the day, like, I just look at Kirk Ferentz and I'm like, man, you've been a coach for a long time. Congrats, but I don't think it's been very good for a long time. You've had good years, but a lot of those years was when the Big Ten West existed. And then you made it to the Big Ten championship game and you got blown out.
Almost every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, John Jacobs, would you say this to Kirk Ferentz's face? Sure. What's he going to do to me?
Yeah.
Is he going to punch me? That's fine. I've been punched before. Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt that bad.
I mean, to that point, that's Doug Maurice did it. And that's what you're referring to is
right.
like
Which if people don't know this story, Doug Maurice after the Ohio State game, which this is one of the reasons, so Doug Maurice is an Ohio State beat reporter, and Doug Maurice has always felt like the Big Ten should be stronger to help, not just help Ohio State, but just in general to combat the SEC. And I do feel like the Big Ten is getting stronger now, so I appreciate that. But he was looking at Kirk Ferentz as a program that's putting players in the NFL and actually being able to develop players at a good rate. But he felt like they were squandering that talent because Kirk Ferentz had this blind spot of hiring his son. So, of course, after the Ohio State game, he goes to the Iowa press conference instead of the Ohio State one and just starts grilling Kirk Ferentz in the press conference, which at the end of the day, he probably did go a little too far at times. There might have been one or two questions in there that it was like, I probably wouldn't say that. But at the end of the day, he grilled him, and then Kirk Ferentz came out the next day, didn't even say it to his face, came out the next day or a day or two later at his press conference and was like, yeah, I'm having a good day. A lot better than being that media guy. Man, what's his problem? If I had to be that media guy, my life would suck. Yada, yada, yada. And it's like,
I hate
Kirk
when that.
Ferentz,
I really don't like that.
Yeah.
When any athlete
you should
or
say it to
coach
his
does
face.
it,
Dude.
I don't.
Yeah. It was a low blow.
JR you got punched in the face. Did your face hurt? Yeah, but it healed.
I'm sorry.
Fine. It's okay. I was on the bus. I was in 7th grade.
It happens.
It's where a lot of fights happen. The bus.
Yeah, the bus. Yeah. The bus stop. The bus.
It's a dangerous place.
My
kids never ride the bus.
This is why my kids walk to school.